Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 8, Episode 51 of our weekly Q&A videos. Now, normally, we're going to start off in a bit of a different order, because normally we've been recently trying to get through a backlog, right, where we pull comments when we see that they're worth answering, and then we start from the oldest and work our way up. And from our sort of little mini hiatus, people didn't stop asking good comments. We just stopped answering them. Shortly. So we're trying to get caught up. Although I think people are less likely to care about a comment that they made a month ago. But that's more our fault than anyone else's.
Right.
But we're gonna do a recent one this time because it's related to a recent video, and there's a lot to talk about with
a lot to unpack. I think it's really relevant. I think we would be doing a disservice to the topic if we delayed it.
Mm-hmm. So that's just the preface for this, which is also going to be a long comment. So this comes from PPD343. And are they going to read the whole thing, or are we going to break it up? It's hard to say.
I want to talk about it sort of in the context first. Mm-hmm. I think there are comments that we strongly disagree with. And one of the arguments against giving this error is that it propagates it. But I think it really, to really get the proper flavor and really get a sense of how these kind of bad faith arguments work, it probably makes a lot of sense to deconstruct the whole thing rather than trying to summarize it and then going at the bigger details. Because I think a lot of this is very typical of the kind of stuff that you'll see online.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so let's just read the comment. It says, wow, you guys think showing papers in normal everyday behavior is a good thing? I did not realize that Canada has gone full Nazi. It is a 100% fact this vaccine does not inhibit spread at all. That is a fact. It is not debatable. These mitigation strategies have not worked at all. The best you can say about this vaccine is that it may inhibit symptoms. You two are making a lot of assumptions about so-called anti-vaxxers. You want to mandate a vaccine that does not inhibit infection or spread by force to everyone? And see, I almost want to stop because we specifically said we didn't want to do it by force. That was like one of the actual. I feel like
doing it by force now.
But that was like one of my really strong sticking points. Actually, was that I specifically didn't want to do it by force to anyone, and I thought that people should be.
This is another one of those points, right? When these bad faith arguments, a lot of times they aren't very careful about their reading. They've got these sort of ready talking points that they slap onto whatever situation, no matter what happens. So it's not really good faith because they don't even care what you say. It's just an opportunity to blather on about their, I was going to say factual errors, but why don't we just call them lies? Very simple and clean.
Yeah, because that was like one of my biggest points actually, was that I think everybody should be allowed to make their own decision. I just think that there are consequences of that. Anyways, we're getting. That's incredibly disturbing and not based in any science. You may as well sponsor this video by Pfizer. The creator of the mRNA vaccine talks about on a daily basis how mRNA technology can be incredibly dangerous long term. That is why it hasn't been used. Everywhere you look, the highest vaccinated countries and areas inevitably have a new wave that have nothing to do with unvaccinated. You will be mandated a third dose like Israel and Canada. It is a certainty. Why if the vaccine works so well? And if it doesn't work so well, why do you want to forcibly inject people? Look at Singapore, look at the UK, look at Israel. Highest vaccination rates in the world and their highest case numbers ever. There have been thousands of deaths from the vaccines and millions of injuries in the United States. You obviously have not seen the date. I'm assuming they meant data. The best part about it is you will never go back to normal. Never. Canada is full-blown totalitarian and will be forever. Just look at how you two think. It is unbelievable. You two are scared to be in public while vaccinated. You have absolutely no value in what makes life wonderful. You like your Comic Cons? Well, they're gone forever. The reason? Look in the mirror. You follow liars in your government.
Okay, the Comic Cons. I mean, we're talking about science fiction fantasy convention. Again, not that it matters or it's important, but
there's several funny things actually. Are you going to say that you're going to be going to the World Fantasy Convention probably?
I am going to the World Fantasy Convention. In Montreal in a couple weeks.
And the other thing that's very funny is that there was just a huge nerd convention. There was a huge fan expo in Toronto just happened.
Right.
And the voice actor for Squidward was there.
Oh yeah?
The voice actor for Zuko from Avatar was there. The voice actor who played like Timmy Turner and a bunch of other things She was there.
I was going to say as a woman. I didn't think, a lot of those young
I think
boy voices.
Is voice actor the gender neutral term? I don't know if voice actor is specifically a gender term.
I think actor is a gender neutral term. It's when they started doing stuff like actress, where they're specifically making, because actor is somebody who does something. That was never, I mean, if anything, everybody acts, and you're an actor.
Yeah, so the funny thing is there just was a huge convention in Toronto, and I think there was some limited seating, but there was a lot of people who were there and masked, and the reason why they were there is because they have the the reason why it can happen right now is because the vaccine is out there and a lot of people are vaccinated. I don't know if they had to show vaccination proof or not. It was never something that I was planning on going to, but it's very funny that they're like, this is never going to happen when...
It's happening. It literally is happening.
Yeah, every time I open my TikTok, I see another video of somebody at Fan Expo Toronto, and I think it was just this weekend. I think it's over now, but it's very funny because I mean, I don't know. They probably don't live in. They might live in Canada. They may not live in Canada, but if they lived near where we were, the events that they're telling us are never going to come back because the way that we live are.
We're waiting for them to stop.
Yeah, they're happening.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's almost besides the point.
So let's break it down a little bit of time. I mean, you think showing papers is normal, everyday behavior is a good thing. I did not realize Canada's gone full Nazi. And that's your first warning, right? When you have to, instead of actually making your point with the real, factual arguments, and you start off by name calling, then you already get a feel that it's not going in the most intellectually rigorous places.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Okay, having to show papers based off of an essentialist thing and having the punishment be death is one very specific thing. Well, but there's a million times that you need documents to do things.
Clearly he hates Costco. I personally really like Costco because they're good to their employees. Yeah. The ratio between their top CEO salary to their frontline workers is probably the lowest among big companies like that.
Yeah. I mean, you need a Costco membership to get into Costco. You
have to show it every time.
You need a passport to leave the country. You need a driver's license to get in your car, and you don't technically need to show it every time. But the idea is that you should
your insurance papers
have it ready. Yeah, there's a lot of paper. There's a lot of documents that you need. To do a lot of things, and in a lot of places that you don't need documents for stuff is mostly because that stuff has already been worked out, and that everybody on an individual basis has already seen it. You're to do university, or school, right? I mean, there are places where you have to have badges to get into your workplace.
Go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. And the only places that they don't make you show those are there's a huge amount of stuff that you need to be registered in a system and have a specific changeable status be verified.
Yeah,
to so just live.
I mean, most people get that. I don't think we have to belabor that.
Yeah.
But even that paragraph is 100% fact that this vaccine does not inhibit spread at all, which is a lie. And then they go on to say, to reinforce that lie, to say that is a fact, it is not debatable. It literally is not debatable because it's clear that it actually decreases spread, not 100%. I mean, this is a different tack than what you usually see because, it doesn't stop the spread. And that argument that it's not 100% means that it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Which is also a dumb argument by itself, but this is actually worse.
Yeah, I don't know what sources, even vaguely reputable, would be giving you that.
Yeah.
Not telling you that, because no vaguely reputable source would tell you that. But I don't even know what vaguely reputable source is giving you that opinion, because there's a huge amount of anti-vax sources that actually take a much gentler stance on how vaccines aren't helpful. There even a lot of the anti-vax stuff cedes more ground than that opinion. So it's weird.
And I think part of it is that if they want to appeal to people who are actually having concerns, in good faith, they actually have legitimate concerns, and that's totally okay. I actually don't mind people who are worried about things. This is how it declares itself as being bad faith, right? By taking stuff that's relatively well known, easily established, easily fact checked, and lies to your face about them.
Yeah, and I also think it's functionally a good thing to have people challenging ideas, because I think when you challenge ideas, that's when they get to be, stand up to rigor, and people get to address them and find the sort of other side. So if somebody goes, oh, well, vaccines aren't that helpful, they only do this, blah, 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 right? If they're making people not get vaccinated, that's a little bit damaging. But I think, in my mind, that if that's an opportunity for somebody to come in with facts, And if they do a good job, say, no, this is how it actually works and this is why. That idea, instead of just being this unchallenged, unquestioned thing, all of a sudden has stood up to a little bit of pressure on it. And if the idea stands up, then that's, even better indication that it's true. So in general, I actually like people challenging stuff, even when I feel like it should be a basic fact. Well, but the issue that you run into is that this isn't challenging it. This is just making up stuff.
Yeah. See, this is what I mean. So if you're challenging it and you're expressing concern, that sometimes is camouflage for people who really want to do this. What this person is doing is just make up stuff. So it doesn't, they're saying it doesn't inhibit spread, and it may, capital may. I love the way you read this, actually, where you captured a lot of the nuance of this, and the unhinged nature of this comment. So it's not that it may inhibit symptoms. What it does, it's actually been really effective in reducing the number of people who end up in hospital, and even better at reducing the number of people in the ICU.
Yeah, it saves lives.
Right. And what I see, the more subtle argument I often see is that when people point out to, they misinterpret stuff and say, oh, look, this says that it doesn't make a difference. And then you can go to it and you can see it, but then it's actually addressable. And that brings me to the next point, where they talk about the creator of the mRNA vaccine talks about on a daily basis how mRNA technology can be incredibly dangerous long term. That is why it hasn't been used. And so when you have vague statements like this, they're not non-attributable. So you don't name anybody. You can't go to what they're saying. But if I had to make a guess in terms of listening to this sort of anti-vaccine rhetoric, one of the things I've seen is that, all right, so first, mRNA vaccine was not one person creating it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different people talking about it. The most common sort of lie about it, though, is that people say that Moderna, one of the two companies that have been responsible for the biggest mRNA vaccines, they try to say that they said that person said that the mRNA vaccines alter your DNA, which is not true. It's a little bit more nuanced and complicated, but basically he's saying that there's a huge amount of potential, and anti-vax people have interpreted that as saying, oh, it's real dangerous. It's going to mess up your DNA, which is, again, not true if you have any understanding of how mRNA is actually working.
Yeah, and so that's the problem, is that we have to assume that that's what this person meant. If not, they can totally point us towards whoever is talking about it on a daily basis. Right. And I assume that even if you think that's true, you think that's an exaggeration, because I'm 100% sure you're not going to be able to find anybody who is the creator of the mRNA vaccine, which is not a real position, who is saying literally every single day, making the same statement. I don't know, like checking on Twitter saying, hey, good morning, by the way, mRNA changes DNA. Right? Doesn't seem...
See, and what we're seeing here is actually a really good example of the Gish Gallop. And so that's like a rhetorical strategy where you... somebody who's arguing in bad faith throws up so much junk and says so many things that can be refuted on, like, from dozens of different angles. Makes it really hard to respond, because if you don't have the information, then you have to look it all up. If you do have the information, deciding which part to go at, if you're gonna, this is why debates are never good to me, or never seem useful to me, because it's not so much an idea of who's actually got the best information, it's who can sound the most convincing. And sometimes saying a bunch of stuff, if with no regard for whether any of it's true, sounds way more convincing than somebody who's actually trying to be careful and saying exactly what's true without overstating stuff.
Yeah, if you assume that both people are well researched and, making fair claims, if one person comes out and is making these really strong claims and making a lot of claims, the other person is going, well, you're not fully capturing it. You're going to go, oh, wow, that guy's saying a lot of stuff. Guy's kicking the other guy's butt. Or that person's kicking the other person's butt. Anybody can participate in a debate. But you're going to go, wow, one of them is getting up there. And they seem real passionate and fired up. And the other person is just shuffling around their papers like a nerd and saying all this, whatever.
So I think this is also another example of the difficulty with our electoral system and political parties and whatever, right? That it's become so much less an issue of who's got the best plan for what to do, and more, well, this political leader, would I want to have a beer or a coffee with them? And I think that's the wrong approach. And I think that's one of the problems with, say, somebody like Justin Trudeau, where part of the reason he was elected prime minister was because he was charismatic. He's a good-looking guy. He seems kind of cool. He seems like he's fun to hang around. And he's done a few pretty rotten things. The other problem on top of that, though, is it's not like we have a great alternative because with first past the post system, Aaron O'Toole is a bigger tool. And
we have a better alternative, but Jagmeet Singh was not going to win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So where were we? It was
the creator of mRNA vaccine.
Okay.
So the next part is everywhere you look at the highest vaccinated countries and areas inevitably have a new wave that has nothing to do with the unvaccinated, which is a weird...
It's a stupid argument, I think. Because if you look at it... Hold on.
The first thing, nothing to do with the unvaccinated, is a really weird thing to say because you can't make that claim. I couldn't make the claim that a new wave only had to do with the unvaccinated, even if every single person who was getting tested was unvaccinated. There's the real world is so complicated that you couldn't make that claim in any direction no matter what. That's just not ever going to be verifiable.
But this person's taken the step beyond making it unverifiable. They've actually made it verifiable and made it blatantly a lie.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, look at Singapore, look at UK, look at Israel, highest vaccination rates in the world and their highest case numbers ever, which is not true. Link in the description too. The highest actually is United Arab Emirates, 96%. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we ignore some of the smaller countries that might have a higher percentage, because logistically that kind of stuff is not reproducible. When you look at really small numbers, it's going to be a lot more random in terms of what impact it's going to have.
Yeah.
But Singapore is 7th place with only 81%. And so if Singapore out of that group is a top, and let's see, what did I say? Was that 7th?
Yeah.
8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. UK is 15th and Israel is 16th. And they're at 73 and 71%. Yeah. So what you're looking at is about at least 20% people who are unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. And 1 in 5 is huge. I think one of the things that it's easy to lose sight of is the scale of things, where the number of people that need to get sick to totally destabilize your hospital system is not that large.
Like a couple percent.
Yeah, because our hospitals aren't built to do that, and especially not the ICU. Mm-hmm. So, first part, it's a lie. I mean, these aren't the top vaccinated places. And when you look at the one way where Israel is in the news a little bit is maybe that they've been doing boosters, so the number of shots they've given to their population is way higher.
Yeah.
Because they've been pretty aggressive and doing a pretty good job getting the third shot in. But there's still a large number. In Israel's case, 29% as of filming today. We had numbers from yesterday. 29% unvaccinated, or not fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
So it's not the number of doses, it's the number of people vaccinated. And so the related problem that's not mentioned here in terms of, but I've seen this argument too, is that in the US, for example, if you look at county breakdown, county by county, and which counties are getting most vaccines and whether they're having bumps in cases. I've seen one study that was done by a high school student and some other, epidemiologist that was looking at specifically 2-week chunks of time where vaccination rates were high, but caseloads did not drop and stuff. Mm-hmm. Besides the issue of looking at small periods of time for no particular reason. Mm-hmm. The other issue is what it looks like the counties and states in the United States are doing for a lot of them is they're measuring the number of people who are getting vaccinated in that state.
Yeah.
Now think about that. So besides the issue of, so they're actually having some counties with more than 100% vaccination rate. And how that happens is they're basing it on, they're not counting the people right. So their denominator is wrong. Their census is out of date. So there are actually more people potentially in the area than they were counting.
Yeah.
And because they're counting people who got their vaccines there, places like Florida where a lot of people come in, snowbirds come in to get vaccinated and then leave.
Yeah.
There's still a bunch of people who live there who still haven't been vaccinated because you're counting all these people from out of state.
Yeah.
So that's why someplace like, say, Massachusetts, where they count people who live there who got vaccinated, the numbers are similar in vaccination to Florida, but based on the way they're counting wrong, the vaccination rate in Massachusetts is probably way better than Florida, and that's why Florida is getting hit so hard right now.
Yeah, so it's interesting because a new wave that have nothing to do with unvaccinated is a really weird statement. Because what I've seen, people talk about, one of the arguments I've seen made, which isn't even an argument that he's making here, I don't think, but is that if you look at it, like the proportion of vaccinated people getting COVID, right?
Right.
Verified cases is going up. And going like, oh, well, look, more and more vaccinated people are getting sick. That's, a good sign that it's not working, right? Which, that statement is also not true, because it's just, you look at proportions, right. They're still getting better. And the other thing that you also have to look at is how people's behavior changes, where people were staying home with unvaccinated, and then there's a lot of people who are double vaccinated who are just doing whatever. We're just living life again.
Right.
And,
because it's all additive. Like, it's all, there are different layers of things that you can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's what we've always talked about, where each thing is like a certain percent effectiveness. Nothing's 100% effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it's the same as everything else. It's like when masking and social distancing, right? Are two like layers that can reduce it a lot. So if you're vaccinated, masked, and social distancing, you're great. If you're vaccinated but not masked or social distancing, and you're going out and seeing people all the time, you might be at an increased risk than you were before. If what before you were doing is only mask, social distancing, going to the grocery store, and nothing else, then you're going to have more opportunities to be exposed, and you're going to be really testing if that vaccine is working as well as you hope it is.
I like the way you said testing it.
Yeah.
We're just testing it.
You're really going to be sort of making it put the work in.
See, and what's interesting too is, again, not saying it's exactly the same person, because I haven't seen this person make the argument on our channel about this, but it's funny how it's very similar that the same people who don't understand how proportions work. Because I'll tell you something, if we had 100% vaccination, all the cases of infection would be vaccinated people. I wish that were the case. But proportional speaking, these are the same people that are associating with racists, who somehow don't understand how proportion, really understand how proportion works when they're trying to make a racist case against crime. So
there's a lot going on.
But see, so here's the thing too. I mean, it feels like hypocrisy. It feels like inconsistencies and self-contradictions. If you think that rationality is what they're going for, what they're really going for is that, listen, this is something they don't want to do, and they're trying to justify it. So they'll fling any reason out, not that they believe it, but somehow that it will act as a justification for them not having to do these things. So, there is a consistency there, but not the kind of consistency that you'd actually want in somebody who's speaking to you in good faith.
It's not an intellectual consistency. It's a opinion consistency. And so there's one other thing that we sort of skipped over, which is you will be mandated a third dose like Israel and Canada. It is a certainty. Why, if the vaccine works so well?
Oh, so actually Canada hasn't mandated a third dose yet.
But
we're allowed to.
We probably...
It'll
probably be a good idea to get a third dose. So that part is like,
Yeah. But that, as an argument that, well, it needs a certain number of doses, that's kind of stupid. Because if you look at, say, hepatitis B, you get 2 in school, but the actual ideal dosage for that is 3. Hepatitis A is 3. The childhood vaccinations for tetanus, diphtheria, polio, pertussis, that's 4 dose course at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and 18 months. And tetanus, actually, you still get a lifetime dose every 10 years.
There's a yearly flu vaccine. There's nothing about vaccines.
Well, I'm sure they'd argue against vaccines yearly for the flu.
Yeah, too. I know, but there's nothing about vaccines that says, like, if they're good enough, you should be able to get exactly a certain number, then stop forever. Yeah. That's never been something that's been true about vaccines. And it's a weird, like, well, if the 2 work so well, why would you have a third? It's like, well, if you're trying to tell me that knee pads and elbow pads are so effective in preventing injuries, why you also have to wear a helmet? Yeah. It's like, they're putting more, if it's good, more of a good thing is a lot, more protection is often good. But
in certain situations, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, there's sometimes some things that get better are more as you add more, and some things there's a balance that you find. Yeah. But it's not an argument one way or another, because until you actually understand the system that you're talking about, which I don't think this person does, then it's just a nonsensical argument. Like, it has no relevance at all.
If $5 is so good, tell me why you want $10.
Okay, that was a good one. Yeah. But there's a lie in it too, right? This, again, more gish gallop. So, Canada's mandated a third. Canada has not.
Canada hasn't mandated any vaccines. Canada hasn't even mandated one.
Yeah. Because, anyways, and the more I hear these kind of arguments, and the more I see where individual workplaces have mandated vaccines, the more I think it really would make a lot of sense to do it, if only because it seems like it's effective.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I think Canada doesn't have the teeth to do it, because what are you going to do, arrest all these people? It's not practical.
Yeah, so that's another thing. They said Canada's full-blown totalitarian and will be forever. Just look at how you two think it is unbelievable. Canada has very consistently, at every step of the line, done less and interfered in people's lives less than I think they probably would have been justified doing.
Yeah, I've been disappointed, actually. I think if Canada had taken a harder line the same way Australia had, we would have been, and then protected the border, or just guarded the borders a little bit harder, then I think this could have been over a lot faster.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're a libertarian, or if you really believe the government shouldn't be doing anything, you probably think that Canada's done too much. But what's funny is, if you're using us as an example of why you think Canada's being really restrictive, I think that a lot of the stuff that they put in place has been pretty limp, and I think they haven't done enough, and almost none of my behavior has been informed by what Canada has and has not allowed me to do. It's exclusively been informed by what I think personally is safe for me and the people around me.
Right.
Because I've always been doing something that's more extreme than what Canada's forcing me to do. I'm still doing it right now, so my behavior is entirely uncoupled from what Canada wants me to do. It's entirely related to how dangerous I think COVID is.
How dare you, Canada?
So it's weird, and also, like, I don't think the government has in any significant way influenced how I feel about the virus. I think actually, when I've looked at it, I've been like, wow, I mean, they're not doing a great job disseminating information. They're not doing a very good job telling us what's going on. The restrictions are kind of weak. And I haven't had to keep up with the restrictions because I'm just like, I'm doing more than that anyway. So you're going to tell me that I'm allowed to,
to go to the gym now without any limits?
Yeah, you're going to tell me I'm allowed to go to the gym, and I'm going to go, okay, thanks, I'm not going to. So it's weird. It's weird for them to be like, you guys are what's making the government totalitarian, because we have no impact on the government. We're not in any way informing what the government does at all, and we're also mostly ignoring it because we're just doing personal safety stuff. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And so let's keep on going on this. There have been thousands of deaths from the vaccines and millions of injuries in the United States. You obviously have not seen the data. So here's the other thing, another talking point, and I think they're getting it wrong a little bit. If they'd done it better, they would be complaining that it's not specifically the data. There's something in the States called the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Yeah. It's people self-reporting stuff that happens. It's not checked. It's basically people have freedom to say whatever they want.
It's a slightly more formal sounding internet comment section, basically.
Yeah. And so the same people who don't believe the data on the number of deaths and data that we get from hospitals and doctors, as far as, the wild infection goes, very often these are the same people who think that self-reported data is like some sort of gold standard and we have to hold it in high esteem because this shows, again, it shows what they want to see. And again, it's this sort of contradictory thing. And it's not because any of the reasons matter. It's because they've reached the conclusion is that they don't want to do these things. Mm-hmm. They're flinging stuff to the wall and hoping something sticks. And if some of it contradicts itself, who cares, right? This is how I'm characterizing what they're saying. But they're basically they just don't want to do stuff. Any reason they'll get them from doing stuff is enough. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this too, not in this particularly worded argument, but I've seen arguments that the side effects of other things like public health measures have resulted in more suicides. Yeah. When in fact, suicides are down. The number of people committing suicide during the pandemic has actually dropped. And there's an interesting story or interesting rationale behind that. And if we have time, we'll talk about it, but I feel like we're going to run out of time.
Yeah, we're pretty much... Yeah, so this was a weird comment. Like, you'll never go back to normal ever is another weird thing. Because it's like, I mean, we're figuring out what normal is. And
normal is never static, right? Yeah. Like, if we say you'll never figure out what normal is. If you look at the whole boom of the comic book industry in the 90s, where there was a push towards trying to squeeze more money out of collectors, so they'd have like a bunch of alternate covers and limited editions. Yeah, we'll never get back to what it was before, because now that the companies have figured out a way to squeeze more money out of collectors, they're never going to stop. Yeah. And so stuff changes, and that's my sort of weak way, I guess, trying to pull it back to justice. Because I remember, again, I was collecting comics in the 90s, and you look at the numbers of comics, way higher than they are now, but even then it was still way lower than they were in the golden age.
Yeah.
And the new X-Men comic that came out that Jim Lee drew had like 5 or 6 different covers, and that was they made no bones about hiding the fact that it was basically a money grab, because there's nothing different in the comic. It was just a different cover.
It was just a rarity thing, yeah.
So
it's weird. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's one last thing that I think I want to touch on a little bit. It almost doesn't matter for the arguments here, but this is just, you're talking about us personally, so we can respond to personally, because that's easy. Is that you two are scared to be in public while vaccinated, and no, we aren't.
Well, okay, so can I say something about that too? Because it's not speaking to us personally is not bad. I do want to make, before I let you go, because I do want to hear what you want to say, but I really want to make this point before I forget, is that how is it that it's become such a talking point, and people interpret this as an insult when they say you're scared?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's like the argument that people used to make, well, when they would accuse you of being gay, like somehow that was bad. Being scared is not bad.
It's not.
There's no moral judgment. There should be no moral judgment, and there's nothing wrong with being fearful about the safety of the people that you care about, about your own safety and being careful about it. So are people with guns scared and that's why they're carrying guns? I don't care. Like, are people doing stuff because they're scared, or they just want to be careful? However you want to characterize it. Being scared is not an insult.
It's true.
Okay, so please go ahead. I just want to make sure we get to that. We sort of put that out of the way before we start talking about us personally, because I don't want it to seem like somehow that it is an insult, and that's why you're saying that you're not. It's just the way you are.
Yeah.
And it's a factually bad argument because it is addressed to us.
It's true.
It's not a good argument in any case, even if we were scared.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you're totally right. There's nothing wrong with being scared. And I will say, what's fair is that we still are, in a lot of situations, maybe uncomfortable to be in certain public situations while vaccinated.
Right.
But it's not for us. I mean, I'd be fine if I got COVID in like a 99.99%. Like, there are still vaccinated people who are dying, right?
Right.
There is still some risk, but it's that sort of background level where there's like risk to walking down the stairs, there's risk to doing a lot of things, where if it was just me and I was just looking out for myself, I would be comfortable pretty much doing whatever I wanted. Hanging out with people non-masked, whatever else, right? In the same way that in cold season, right, I didn't lock myself up. Where if that was sort of the only consideration, if it was just that, I wouldn't care at all. But I think that we still have a responsibility to be good to the people around us. Yeah. And so my sort of line that I draw is, I think that there are still immunocompromised people, who either can't get the vaccine in the first place, or the vaccine is, not going to be helpful to them. I think there are kids that still can't get the vaccine. Right. I think there are, still populations who are old enough, or for other reasons, or health is poor enough, that they're going to be at sort of a greater personal risk if they get sick anyways. Yeah. And I think that each one of us as an individual can do at least a tiny fractional bit of making sure that the virus doesn't continue to spread and stay alive. So I'd rather not get a minor case of COVID on the off chance that I give it to somebody else, just so that I'm taking myself out of that the loop out of the system as a point for it to spread and sort of hang on a little longer.
Or even as the more generations of virus that are created, right, the more chance there's going to be mutation.
Yeah.
And I also do want to say too, I mean, I know that the anti-vaxxers, or people who aren't vaccinated, I shouldn't say anti-vaxxers. Anti-vaxxers is a specific subset of unvaccinated. That unvaccinated people, I want to assume, are just people who have concerns in good faith, and I'm going to ignore all the a-holes that are actively trying to undermine the efforts of people trying to protect them. And I'm going to hope that that they don't die either, because just because they are mistaken, just because they've been brainwashed, does not mean that I want them to die.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, that's a very good point. Even this person, there's even somebody who's separate from this person. Even if you were talking about somebody who is like actively saying the vaccine is dangerous and trying to get other people to not get vaccinated and causing real harm, I don't think that the punishment for being wrong and maybe a little bit harmful, or not maybe, but like harmful, right?
Yeah.
Is getting killed by it in some sort of act of dramatic irony, or getting really sick, or having lifelong health problems, right? I don't like those people, but there's no sense in which I think that there should be some cosmic moral judgment where they get sick and die from it, and I go, ha, that's what you deserved, right? I'm trying to keep people safe, and I'm also constantly renegotiating what I think my own personal responsibility is. And I think right now I'm erring on the side of caution. I mean, we lost a family member to COVID.
We did.
And I think what's important to me is that I want to go out and do stuff, but I also want to act in a way that I know I'm never going to look back and regret and say, I think I was irresponsible, and look back and think, I caused harm to people that I didn't need to. And so I'm erring a little bit on the side of caution, because it matters to me more to be able to look back and make sure that I'm happy with the decisions I made, than it does to necessarily, go out and do stuff right now.
And I think your calculation is different from other people's too, because it'll partly depend on what you think the cost is. If you've got years to make up for the lost time now, then it costs you less than it's somebody who doesn't expect to live another 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think that probably has an impact too on how some people who are older are also willing to accept more risk, because they feel like if they put it off now, they may never get the chance to do some of the things that they want to do.
And I find it hard to blame those people, especially if they're vaccinated too. Right. I find those people, people are going to make personal choices.
But there's the flip side to it too, right? Because some of those people may also be the ones that are thinking, well, let me put this off. I want to find out more about the long-term effects of the vaccine. And I get totally legitimate concern, because I have that concern. But the difference is how urgent or how serious you think the current situation is to feel like you have time to do that. And that has everything to do with the kind of information that's being spread about whether the pandemic is serious, which again, the conspiracists have been pushing the narrative that it's not dangerous, and then transitioning to, well, if it is dangerous, there's nothing we can do about it. All those public health measures are useless.
Yeah.
To those measures are actually harmful, whether it's increased risk of suicide or side effects from the vaccine. Because here's the thing, unless you're doing all your research on YouTube and Facebook, if you actually look at the numbers that scientists are publishing, the dangers of the vaccine, which billions, I had some numbers here, which billions of people have gotten. I think there's like 7 billion. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Does that sound right?
I don't know. That sounds too high, doesn't it?
No, I think in terms of total doses.
Total doses, yeah. Number of people vaccinated is definitely not. Anyways, it almost doesn't,
So you've got 6.8 billion doses. You've only got about 240 million people who've been infected, and you've got maybe less than 5 million who've died. Here it is. All right, so 6.88 billion doses have been given.
Yeah.
So that's at least 3 billion people, right? Mm-hmm. You've got only 244 million people who've been infected, which is less than 10%.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
And you've got 5 million deaths. Then it's important to get a sense of the scale to really know what we're talking about when we talk about consequences of the infection versus consequences of the vaccine. And the vaccine has been surprisingly and ridiculously safe. Mm-hmm. So I had some more notes on the myocarditis stuff to address that
forever.
But we could, I think maybe
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to force anybody to do anything, but we highly recommend you get vaccinated. It's a good choice to make for yourself and for other people. And if that statement sounds wrong to you, I would love for you to take some time and look up stuff and figure out for yourself and really sort of examine why you feel that way. And if at the end of the day you still feel that way, like I said, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. I'm not interested in making anybody do something that they're going to really begrudge. But I just want people to be safe. And so do what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. We hope that everyone's well. This is a really hard time.
Yeah.
And I also recognize that there's a lot of people telling you a lot of things. And it's sometimes hard to know who to believe. And so my recommendation is just wherever possible, really seek out information and try to look at it and drill down and think critically about it.
If you're scared,
if you at all have the time or resources to do that.
If you're scared of the vaccine, then the people in your life that you should probably reach out to would be your doctor if you have one.
Yeah.
Who's probably the best equipped to not only understand your specific situation, but have the right information to address your concerns.
Yeah. So there we go. You don't trust any one person individually either. I mean, there's no one fact source. There's no one person that you're going to go to who's going to tell you exactly the right thing and be the only person that you should go to, and that's including us, right?
Oh, I wouldn't assume anybody's coming to us for medical information.
Assuming, but obviously, yeah, we don't give medical information, but like no one person should be convincing you of anything. No one thing should be your primary fact source, is another thing. And I think that's sort of easy to fall into where, find a diversity of opinions, see what feels right to you, but then think about why it feels right to you and try to engage with it as much as you have energy for. And I know a lot of people also don't have time or energy to engage with stuff that way, but
yeah, just don't bring your BS to our channel in the comments. That's all.
Yeah,
we're happy to talk in good faith. It's the bad faith stuff that that I feel like we have to address.
Yeah, that dude's comment was very wrong in a lot of ways, and we spent 41 minutes talking about it.
I'm gonna have to find some longer footage then.
Yeah. So anyways, that's it for this week. We've got a very appropriate shout out because this is a shout out to Eliza vaccine product Kate, and she custom printed a shirt and is going as a chemical to her work for Halloween. They have a Halloween costume. It's like she's got like a white shirt, like a white t-shirt with like a label, like a chemical label on it. That's like a vaccine product. Or something. Okay. I don't know if it's technically like everything's a chemical, right? I don't know if it's a chemical compound or what, but so
dihydride oxide.
She's going as some vaccine product. I can show you the picture.
Okay, I want to see that.
Yeah. And so this shout out was brought to you by having more money than good sense. I've said, which I don't actually know is true. I think it's a funny thing, and it's joyful to dress up as a label from your own company so that you look like you're like a vaccine vial or something.
I think it's joyful to actually believe that when you're not a billionaire and to feel like you have more money than you need and that you can do things that give you joy. Yeah. I think that's wonderful.
I think everybody should have that amount of money.
I think everybody should feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon.
And that would be Victor Gomez, Consul Peasant, and Edwoon at the top tier last word. Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at Your Message Here tier. Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo at the credited level. And Chris Wolf, Scarlett Danny, Awesome Gamer 241, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E. at the gratitude level.
Here you go. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you next time.
Komoda.